All right, let's take a quick tour of what the course looks like and what you'll be doing over the next 7 weeks. I'm going to assume you have some familiarity with Canvas. If you don't, there are some things I can point you toward to get you introduced to it. But broadly speaking, it's fairly easy to navigate, as easy as any educational software is, I guess. The course itself is called Data Wrangling. That's a bit of a misnomer. Really what it is a set of tools. I teach a lot of different courses. Usually they mix some combination of sort of applied and theory. This is really the only course I've taught in many years that is really just about the tools. And the aim here is to get sort of people that have a social science background, especially a working knowledge of some of the technologies we use to do the research and some of the practice that we do. So people coming into the course may have a background in programming. You certainly may have you may be a professional programmer, that may be your day job, or you may simply have done a programming class in college or in high school at some point along the line. Some of you may have no programming background at all, and this really does not assume any programming background at all. It is intended to get you from 0 to, maybe not 0 to 60, but at least 0 to 30 fairly quickly. The aim is that by the end, you'll be able to kind of produce some working Python scripts that will execute some of the things you might need to do for other coursework, for some of your methods courses. And if you do a thesis or you do research in some of the other courses, you'll have the ability to do those things without having to kind of rely on others or rely on commercial software or something like that. So you see here that we have some kind of objectives, that is being able to get that basic level of skill, do so somewhat ethically, clean the data and transform it to a certain degree, with at least the basics, some exposure to some of the common tools for doing that, and also do some basic exploratory analysis of large text content and network data. I should say, I think I've said elsewhere, my name is Alex Halavey. You have my email address right here. It's the prof at ASU, so you don't have to remember how to spell my surname. For this year, I really started out having office hours that were at a fixed point, but given that people are coming from all over the country and all over the world, that doesn't work out. So if you follow this link, you'll be able to make an appointment for an office hour, I guess. It's not really office hours, it's just a regular appointment via Zoom. If you'd like, you're welcome to kind of do that with others in the course as well. So it's not just you. I'm always happy to meet with a group of people as well. All right. Textbooks. There are no textbooks for this course. It's largely videos like this one, along with some pointers to other resources. When I first started learning Python, there was one book, I guess, out there, but you wouldn't find it at your bookstore. And it always amazes me now when I go into a bookstore and there's shelves upon shelves of how to do different things in Python. It's very exciting. That said, for the basics that we're doing in this course, it's probably more than we need. We really are just trying to get some basic scripting in place. And so I'm going to be drawing on these three especially, Python for social science, automate the boring stuff, and a whirlwind tour of Python. And I'll have links to kind of what we're doing to each of these. They're actually available on the web for free. And so I have links out to these, and you're welcome to get these, or honestly, go and pick up one of the others. I like the Head First book, for example, although it goes very, very slowly. So if you're feeling like things are going too quickly, that may actually be a great advantage. There's lots of other examples out there of good texts that do this. It's more of finding one that works with the way you think. But for the course itself, I'll link out to some of the chapters from these books, and we'll kind of draw on what we already have. I will say that you need to have a computer. Ideally, in an ideal world, you have a computer that's already running Linux. I'll try to make reference, I think I do, through the lectures of how to do things on Linux, on Mac, and on Windows. It's a little tricky depending on what you're doing, but at the very least, you need to have a computer, and it needs to be a computer you have administrative access to. So it can't be a work computer that you can't change anything on, because that'll make things much harder for you. So it should be a computer you actually kind of own in terms of having complete control of it. And good access to the internet. I think that's pretty much all you need. There's no special software. I mean, we'll be using software, but it's all open source, open access, free software. So that should not be a problem. We'll be making use mainly of Canvas for the kind of the interaction that we have. In the past, I've used Slack and other things for interacting, but for this semester, it's really just all concentrated on Slack. I'm sorry, on Canvas. So you don't need to kind of go elsewhere for that. For the work that we'll be doing, we'll kind of go to some other sites. We'll be doing, I have you using Google's Colab for doing the actual programming for most of it. We'll be making use of ASU's computing resources as well for some of it. But largely we'll be kind of focused on Canvas. There's the requirements that I was supposed to be talking about. You certainly don't need Microsoft 365, but you do need some of these other things like a reliable broadband internet connection, a browser, and as I said, access to your machine itself. I'll note offhandedly that this is for technical support, but there's also tutoring support. And in this, I was a little surprised that they do have tutors at ASU Online that do understand these things, and from what I've heard from students, at least, can be helpful if that's something you want to kind of check out. The issue there is always going to be timing. All right. I teach courses in a number of ways. This has a section called grading. This actually isn't a graded course. It is a mastery course. And what that means is that you choose which of these achievements you want to accomplish. Each one of these has a multiple choice test followed by a practicum of some sort. And so you could potentially do all of these. And if you did, I don't know how many there are, but you would be well beyond an A+. This is kind of how it maps, right? So you get effectively 1 point for each one of these that you accomplish, and then you can kind of choose what you wanted to do. So for example, if you're coming in with very little technical background at all, you could do the Python for wrangling basics and the command line basics, all of these ones that are basics. The difference between the basics and the essentials are effectively that the basics are kind of showing that you can do what we've already done largely in the lecture itself. There's not a huge departure from the things that I'm going to walk through with you. Once you go to the essentials, I do ask you to take that a little bit further, and maybe that will require doing a bit more reading and a bit more exploration. It might be slightly more challenging, right? So if you were to do just the basics, I think there's a total of 6 basics badges, and that would already get you to a B just doing the very basics. Each one of these has a deadline. If you meet deadlines on at least 6 of them, you get an additional point for the on-time delivery. If you contribute to the discussions on each of these pages, we'll take a look at one of those in a moment. That will give you, if you do so substantially, that will give you another point for having kind of helped out others in the class. So, and that doesn't mean you need to know what you're doing. If you're asking good questions, in fact, I was at a Mozilla event a good decade ago where we were talking to people about what's most valued in someone who does programming or something in that space. And what they said was it wasn't a particular set of, say, programming skills or the ability to use a particular tool. It was the ability to effectively ask a question and effectively answer a question. This is one of the reasons that something like Stack Overflow ends up going on people's resumes, because being able to ask and answer good questions is really one of the essential, I guess, soft technical skills. And so this is a good time to practice that. So even if you don't know what you're doing at all, if you can ask a question in an effective way by saying, this is what I don't understand, this is what I've tried so far, those kinds of questions, and then present it in a way that's useful, and then someone can actually answer it, that's a useful skill to develop during the semester as well. All right, so where are all of these things? Well, if you go to the modules list, you'll see that we have where we are now, and then we have a number of modules with due dates attached to them. Again, the due dates get you an extra point. You could potentially push it all the way to the end of the semester. There is a hard deadline of at the end of the semester by which I have to submit my grades, and so that's the hard deadline of the semester. The soft deadlines again will get you towards that on-time delivery piece, so they're worth pursuing. The main reason I have them is to keep you on track, so that you don't try to do everything at the end, because that's not possible. This is a very kind of heavy semester if you want it to be, and so it's enough as it is. And if you don't get started pretty quickly, you'll have trouble kind of getting anywhere on it. So I'm trying to encourage that. That's the main reason they're there. That said, as you know, this is a mastery kind of a thing. So if you don't kind of get if you don't get the badge right away, if you haven't accomplished, if you aren't getting a good enough score on the quiz, or you're not getting your practical stuff isn't quite where it needs to be, you can go back and redo it up until that last deadline. Okay. So a typical page on these, the kind of each section, that first module is actually much longer, with I think 12 or 13 of these sections, but most of them are somewhere around 7 sections, I guess, or 8 sections, something like that. They'll have a video. This one's 12 minutes, which is on the short side. I think the longest actually runs over an hour. I'm very sorry about that. But most of them, I would say, are in the 25-minute range or so. And basically you get to see my smiling face there, unlike this video, and you get to see me type and explain what I'm trying to type as I go. And so I suspect that there's enough hours of this that it can be a little bit tiring to get through that, but hopefully you get the feeling that if we were in a classroom, it's something similar to what we would be doing. You can get by with, sort of doing the basics quiz if you take notes on this. That's enough just kind of going through the video. You absolutely should be playing, it's like a cooking show a lot, where you should be playing along. And so you should start your own Colab page, and you should kind of be trying things and typing as you go along. I talk a little bit more about this in another video. I do give you a copy of my notebook that I produced during this. I hope those are all current. I think they are. And there's a list of resources here. Again, you shouldn't feel like you have to go through each one of these. A lot of these are redundant, but they approach it in a different way. And I suspect as you go through here, you'll say, oh, I like the way the automate the boring stuff works, or I like the Python for social sciences one. And so, you can kind of see a couple of people trying to explain the same thing in text, and that's useful. There's a self-test at the end of each one of these, which allows you to kind of take a quiz. This is an unscored, there's no grades in the class anyway, but it will give you kind of a feeling for what the basics level quiz will look like at the end. You may even run into some of the same questions when you take that at the very end. So to give you an idea of what that means, at the very end we have the Module 1 project and quizzes. This is projects and quizzes because there's a basics and there's an essentials. And so we have a basic task here, which is drawing data from a subreddit on the Reddit website and store it in an CSV, and getting an 85% or better on the quiz. And so that may sound like a pretty hard mark to hit if you've not done any programming before, but mind you that in these in each of the sections above, I'm actually walking us through something very similar to that. And here we're actually at the very end accessing using the API to draw data from Reddit. So it shouldn't be as heavy a lift as it looks like if you're kind of working through this. And then if you take a look, there's a more advanced one here, which asks you to go to some other social platform. And some of these are very, very tricky. A lot of people would want to go to Twitter or something. And frankly, a lot of that is a little tricky. But many of them have an API with a Python wrapper in many cases that allow you to access the content. All right. So that's basically what you'll be doing over the semester. As you go along, if you have a question, if you say, for example, watch this, and you're trying to do something with a string, and you can't figure out what is going wrong, each one of these allows you to make a comment or ask a question. And honestly, that's the best way to ask a question. If you send me an email with a question, I'm going to say, go and post this question to the site, because if you have that question, someone else in the class does too. Almost guaranteed. And if they don't, someone else in the class has that answer. And I have found that students who have just learned how to do something are often in a better position to explain it to you than I am. I do my best to be clear and explain things, but often they'll just have a better way of saying it because it's just come to them as new knowledge. And so it's a great way for you to interact with the other students in the course, and hopefully get both answers and contribute to that in a way that's useful. I think that's it for now. I don't think there's anything else we need to touch on overall. I look forward to seeing you in the modules. Thank you.